How's it going, everyone? So today we're going to be releasing the first episode of Culinary Vapes, which was a segment that was suggested in the last vlog. Both Chris and I would like to thank each and every one of you for being very open-minded and all of the, warm and inviting and welcoming responses from all of you guys. It was very well received, and we appreciate that very much. So I'm going to go ahead and step back and let this young man do his thing. Please keep in mind, right, that what we're doing in terms of the whole, taste is subjective thing, you might still disagree with those words. However, we're trying to argue it in the fashion where when people say taste is subjective, they mean personal taste is subjective. It's not just taste in general. Okay, so depending on the way that you look at it, we need to start defining things in a way that we could all try to agree on. It is a very bold and open move that we're doing, and all I ask is that you give this young man a chance to take it from here. Okay, so you guys take care. Please leave all your questions and comments below. Chris will be here to answer all of them. Right?
Welcome to Tasting 101. Let's start with the problem here. There's three types of tasters. The first type, super tasters, which account for about 25% of the population. These people have an exaggerated sense of taste and many times find things bitter or unpleasant that other people wouldn't. Then there's normal tasters, which accounts for 50% of the population. These people taste normally and don't taste excessive bitterness or strong flavors. Then there's the final 25%, which are referred to as non-tasters. It doesn't mean that they do not taste, it just means they have a weaker sense of taste. Now, that 25%, I'm pretty sure is populated with smokers. Now, I've read many studies on the effects of smoking on taste buds, and they all had various conclusions, but the overriding conclusion that they all seem to agree on was that smoking does affect taste. Now, when I was in culinary school, I had this one chef that everybody hated. Now, the problem with him was no matter how much salt you put in your food, it was never enough. And I'll tell you why. This guy had been a chain smoker for decades, and he'd just obliterated his taste buds. On the other hand, I had this other chef who had a cabinet, this huge cabinet that I could fit in, filled with different salts from all around the world. And he could go through all of those salts and tell you what distinguished each of them from each other. Now, this man had made it his life mission to never touch a tobacco product. So now we're in the predicament where we have put behind smoking and are now left with a lessened sense of taste that we now need to build back up. Let's take a look at the tongue. This is the general idea of how flavor is perceived on the tongue. This you can kind of take with a grain of salt because it's not so much that you only taste sweet here. It's not so much that you only taste sour there or only taste bitter back here. What it does mean is that this area here is just more sensitive to things that are sweet. So here we're going to pick up more sweet flavors as well as the rest of the flavors. And here is where the sour is really going to kick in. Although we do taste it all around the tongue. Think of the most sour food you have ever tasted. For me, it's Warheads. Now, whenever I think of Warheads and visualize it, I'm getting it now. The sides of my tongue start to salivate and kind of almost swell up a little bit. It's kind of funny. That's the wonders of the tongue. How does this apply to vaping? Now, when we vape, the vapor generally goes down the center of the tongue and kind of bypasses the side right here. So you notice many flavors are not going to taste very sour. They may have a throat kick back here and a little bitterness and a little bite to them, but that really sour bite that you get, say, from like a lemon or like a Warhead or something sour, you're not gonna get that kick right there on the sides of the tongues. Now let's talk drip tips. Peg's already talked to us about how a narrow bore drip tip is going to give us more flavor than a wide bore drip tip. I'm going to tell you why. Imagine this is my drip tip right here, my fingers. This is a wide bore right here. If the wide bore is going to spread further and your vapor is going to be quite as concentrated. You're going to have more taste buds in contact with less vapor and less flavor. You're going to have a lower vapor to taste bud ratio. So as you narrow that, you're then creating a tighter channel, which forces more vapor to come into contact with less taste buds. And you're now going to have a higher vapor to taste bud ratio. Now let's talk about how to taste our flavors. Talking about vaping, I see a lot of people when they vape, they inhale and then they blow directly from the nose. Well, generally, you do get most of your flavor from the nostrils. Think when you eat food and you are completely sick, you have a cold, you're all stopped up, you eat food and it tastes like nothing, you have no flavor. That's because as you're eating food, the aromas go up into your nose and you taste through your nose. It's cool if you look at a diagram of the olfactory senses and then your taste bud senses. The olfactory will, let's kind of go from the side, will go up into your brain. Your nerves from your taste buds will go up, go through that same place that the olfactory stops at, and then to the brain. So they're tied together there. So all your olfactory senses and your tongue are tied together. So one's not working, the other one's not going to quite work the same. When we vape, we're not going to get the same flavors on our tongue that we're going to get through our nose. So the way I prefer to vape to taste flavor is to both exhale through my nose, my mouth, and then go back and forth between. Give it a try. You're going to notice that your nose catches different flavors than your tongue does. Last thing I want to leave you with is the 4 different categories that flavors fall into. 1 is salty, or what I like to call savory. 2nd would be sweet. 3rd would be bitter. 4th would be sour. Some say that there's a 5th category, which is called umami, which I'll get into that a bit more later. A little homework. What I want you guys to do is start in everything you eat. Try to distinguish the salty, the sweet, the bitter, and the sour flavors in your foods. Even foods that you feel are only savory are going to have hints, these tiny hints of either sweet, sour, or bitter. What I would like you to do is start telling me about these flavors that you're finding in different foods. As you continue to do this, your senses are going to be opened up. You're going to be able to distinguish more flavors and actually know what you're tasting. Alright guys, let's vape safe, let's vape smart, and remember, flavor's not subjective, but your opinion is.